Hello and welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for companies and I teach at Podcast Engineering School. Every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We alternate between interviews with podcast producers and engineers and daily goody episodes like this one, where I'm going to be going over 8 or 9 daily goody blog posts that I post every, I think I do 3 a week now. I think Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I post a daily goody. So it's not a daily goody anymore. It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday goody. But that's a mouthful. I'm not going to call it that. You can sign up to receive those daily goodies via email as a weekly roundup or daily. Just sign up at podcastengineeringschool.com. That's the website. And the next semester of Podcast Engineering School starts April 20th, 2021. So April 20th. And now, okay, so first of all, I have to talk about last episode, which is the first one I did with the Q9U. And right now, I'm also using the Q9U. So this is the second episode I'm using the Q9U. But the way I'm going to treat the audio is completely different, and I want to explain to you what I did last episode and then what I'm going to do this episode. So last episode, I was actually on the way out of town, and I just recorded my episode the night before. And when I was doing post-production and I heard the sound of the Q9U, I don't know if I had it in the, like, if the mic placement was a little off, something. The mic just sounded very muddy to me. The raw recording sounded muddy. And again, maybe it's because I had the windscreen on. Maybe it's because of where I had it positioned. I don't know. But I didn't like the sound. So what I did is I just EQ'd it, right? I took out a bunch of low end, and then I added a bunch of clarity on the high end. And I didn't get it perfect either. I just kind of dialed it in quick because I had to produce this episode because I was leaving town the next morning, which is not good to do. And I know that's not an excuse. I'm just saying that's what happened. But anyway, this episode is going to be completely different. This episode I'm recording without the windscreen, and I'm also not going to do any post-production. I'm not going to EQ it or compress it at all in post-production, which means, first of all, that the level of this episode is going to be all over the place, because I am, as a host of a podcast, I am notoriously dynamic. Like, I say stuff real loud, like, oh, geez, and stuff like that. And then there are times when I'm talking and I'll sort of trail off, and not trail off, but just get a little more quiet. So normally in post-production, you use compression to help with that. You know, it brings the loud parts down a bit, and it makes the dynamic range a little less so that you can still hear it well, but then of course you can hear it over background noise. So right now, I don't know, if you're driving in your car listening to this episode, I wonder if when I get loud, is it really loud? And then when I, sort of don't talk loud, I just talk maybe not even under my breath, but I just talk at a lower volume. I wonder if you can even hear that. Anyway, that's compression for you. Anyway, so in this episode, I'm recording it with the Q9U. I'm going to do no post-production, which means no EQ, no nothing. I will level the overall level to whatever, minus, well, this will be a mono episode? Yeah, because there's no music. So minus 19 LUFS. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Focusrite Scarlett series, because they're the sponsor. I think this might be the last ad. But we're going to have some fun, because on the back of this Q9U microphone, there are some switches. There's a high-pass filter, which rolls off some low end. And then there's a mid-boost, a mid-range boost of some sort. I don't know if it's high mids or whatever. So while I'm reading this ad, I'm actually going to switch those switches and switch the sound so you can hear it, and so you can hear the difference. So right now it's flat. The mic is flat. Everything is flat. And I'll just tell you about the Focusrite Scarlett series. Now in its 3rd generation, it's the world's best-selling USB interface range with over 3 million units sold worldwide. Okay, now I'm gonna turn on the high pass filter on the back of the microphone here. Okay, I just turned on the high pass filter, which you can tell it removed a lot of the low end, right? Removed a lot of the low frequency. So now my voice should sound a little bit clearer. With the Scarlett interfaces, you can choose from 6 different interfaces with either 1 input, 2 inputs, 4 or 8 microphone inputs. Depends on the number of guests and hosts you want on your show. Okay, so now I'm going to leave this mic the way it is, and I'm going to turn on the mid boost. So what we're going to have is the mid boost on and the high pass filter on. So both switches on the back of the mic will be engaged. All right, so I engaged the little mid boost switch on the back of the mic, and there you go. So by the way, the Scarlett series has superior sound quality, makes you sound your best, works with the recording software that you're already using, right? So you can use the Scarlett, just hooks up to your computer, and you can use it really with any software. Okay, so now with the Q9U mic, I'm going to turn both switches off. So I'm going to go back to flat just to sort of cleanse our palette here. So 1 second. All right, we are back to flat. So you should hear a lot more low end in my voice and no little mid boost either. So to finish up, actually, we're going to do one more little cool test, audio test in a second. But just to finish up talking about the Scarlett Gen 3 interfaces, they work with any type of XLR microphone, and some of these units have a loopback little app that you can use in your computer, and then you can record Zoom or Skype calls directly on your computer with no software and no workarounds. And this is the next test we're going to do, is with the Air button. These Focusrite Scarlett Gen 3 interfaces, they have a little button, it's called Air, and it adds like really high frequencies, probably, I'm guessing from 12K and above. So it's really high frequency clarity, and on some mics it might sound good, on some it might not. So I actually want to turn that on right now, because really, in addition to showing you, I'm actually quite curious what the Q9U that I'm using, and again, right now, both of the switches on the back of the mic are off, so this is flat sounding, and I'm really interested to push in this Air button on the Scarlett interface and then hear what that sounds like. So let me try that. Okay, the Air button has been enabled on the Scarlett 2i2 Gen 3 interface. So this, I'm almost tempted to leave the Air button on for the rest of the episode, but then I'm thinking, well, what if it's, I don't know. I am going to leave it on. I've just made an executive decision. I'm going to leave the Air button on for the rest of this entire episode. So now what might be interesting is if you go back to the beginning of the episode and you'll hear me talking on the Q9U just flat, completely flat, with none of the switches on the back of the mic engaged and the Air button also not engaged. But right now the Air button is engaged, and I don't know, I think it might be cool. So in this episode, we're going to cover, like I said, 8 or 9 daily goodies, and we're going to start with, I think it's November 13th. Yes, earning a lot being a professional podcast editor, engineer, and producer. So earning a lot being a professional podcast editor, engineer, and producer. So a career in podcast production can be amazing if you do it properly. And by properly, I mean profitably, right? If you're going to be editing and producing podcasts, you have to make sure you're making enough profit so that you can make a living and stay in business and also continue to feel good about what you're doing and all that. This post is basically saying that there's a lot of opportunity in the world right now to make a great living producing podcasts and editing podcasts. So there's so much money to be earned, it's crazy. So if you're an editor or a producer and you want to get new clients, do it. Go nuts, man. Just put in a lot of energy for a year or two, and I think you'll be shocked. So it helps if you have a few things. The right tools, right? Because you have to be able to produce professional audio if you're going to charge a lot of money for your services. Number 2, you need a great mentor, someone who can speed up your progress, so that you avoid mistakes and can actually help you build the profitable business as well. And the third thing you need is an edge in the market, meaning you have to have some angle that separates you from the average editor. Graduates of my school, they use, that as a differentiator. They graduated podcast engineering school, so that says something. I don't know what it says exactly. I kind of do, but in the market, like no one's going to recognize my school or anything like that. I actually get asked from time to time if colleges will recognize the certificate of completion that a student gets from podcast engineering school and stuff like that. Or people ask also if they can take out a student loan or something. And because I'm not an official, in quotes, school, that no, you can't do any of that. So anyway, if you're already editing and producing podcasts and you want more clients, I actually have a course called Getting New Clients at Higher Rates. And it's really cool. It's about 2.5 or 3 hours of videos, and it just cuts right to the chase. It's great because I'm not here to mess around. Reminds me of a famous Bobby Knight halftime speech. Are you familiar? Anyway, I'm not here to mess around. If you want to get new clients at higher rates, we're going to do it. Let's do it. And I tell you exactly how to do it. Also, you could check out our podcast production group on Locals. If you go to locals.com, there's a podcast production group, and the link is in the show notes as well. I'm starting to post a lot more information there, not only audio training, little short videos, but also stuff about business, other stuff too. And also, of course, the Podcast Editors Club on Facebook is pretty much a must-be in for anyone who's producing podcasts or editing podcasts. That's just a great group. Steve Stewart is a tremendous individual. All right, next Daily Goody. EQ'ing is a skill. EQ'ing is a skill. Yeah, and what it comes down to, there's a difference between knowing the controls of an EQ, meaning knowing what all the knobs do. There's a difference between that and skillfully dialing in a great sound. So EQ'ing is really a skill. And there's a huge difference between knowing what each control does versus being able to make a piece of audio sound really good. Right? So, of course, you have to understand how to use the EQ. That's the first step. That's fundamentals, right? You have to learn how to use an EQ and what all the knobs and all the different adjustments you can make, stuff like that. Training your ears is another story. Training your ears is what you have to do over a period of years to sort of learn how to really listen and hear audio on a much deeper level, on a much higher resolution. And it happens. You'll sort of, it's almost like your ears become more sensitive when you focus on a piece, on a sound. You'll be able to perceive a lot more. There's a lot there to perceive. Most human beings don't ever go that deep into that perception of sound. But as audio producers and podcast engineers, that's what we do. That's our expertise. That's exactly what separates us from just normal people. We hear everything. We can just tweak things and make things sound good. That's what we do, right? I don't know. That's how I see myself. So yeah, EQ is a skill, and that's one that's really, really important. In fact, soon I'm going to post a short video in the Locals group about a technique to use if you're sort of just getting started with EQ. Then I can show you a couple quick techniques just to sort of mess around with an EQ, and then obviously you have to listen and sort of evaluate what sounds better or what sounds worse. And I'll show you how to dial it in. So anyway, another reason to join our Locals group, besides the fact that it's free. Okay, next Daily Goody is the Apollo Solo. All right, the Apollo Solo, it's a very high quality 2x4 audio interface for Mac and Windows. So this is an interface. The company is Universal Audio, and the Apollo Solo is I guess it's comparable to what I'm using right now, which is the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 3rd Gen. The Apollo Solo is, again, it's meant for one or two people. or one or two sources, because I think it has two XLR inputs. So if you have two people in a room, you can use this interface. And it also comes with, this is the benefit of all the Apollo equipment and hardware, is that it includes like classic plugins. And usually, I'm not sure about the Solo. I didn't look into this. I think it does, though. But most of the universal audio interfaces, they actually have like processing power on the unit itself. So you can basically load plugins onto the unit, the interface itself. You can load plugins on there, and it comes with certain plugins. And then the unit itself will actually have the computer processing power to process those plugins. So it doesn't drain your computer of resources, of processing resources. That's what I'm getting at. And also you get to use the Luna recording system, which is this, it's like a multi-track DAW, I guess. But they said they designed this, like when I heard the description of Luna, the Luna recording system, I heard that it's kind of like a DAW, but it's like almost something completely different. So it's like it's a DAW, but there's ways you operate inside the DAW that are much better than traditional DAWs or something, or it's like a hybrid to something else. I don't know. I just got the idea that it's sort of like next level DAW. Like it's not just another DAW. There are, I don't know if you heard that. I clicked the button on the laptop I'm recording on, and this mic that I'm using, the Samson Q9U, it's very, I don't actually have it shock mounted right now because, it doesn't come with a shock mount. And so, and I heard this in Bandrew's video as well, when he was tapping on the mic, tapping on the boom arm and the table, like this mic somehow really picks up all the vibrations of the table and the arm. And so when I just, right before, in that little space of silence, I clicked on the computer and I think I could hear it running through and like ringing on the mic a little bit. Well, I might as well just do it now that I told you about it. So that's the table. And this is the arm. Yeah, like I'm literally just trying to sit here, not to touch anything or move anything. The next daily goodie. Oh, well, that's not a daily goodie. That's my episode 205 with Mike Rosette from Izotope. If you use Izotope stuff or you're interested in any Izotope stuff, that's a great one to listen to. That's episode 205 of this show. Next daily goodie, set up your microphone to point away from any noise sources. Yeah, set up your mic so that it points away from any noise sources. So a lot of times, especially when you first get your microphone, it's like you have to set it up somewhere. I mean, you have to pick a room, and then you have to set it up somewhere in the room. And so my point here is that, like, if there's like an air conditioning duct in the ceiling in one corner of the room, let's say, or like, the heat duct, the HVAC duct, the air duct in the ceiling, if that's like in one corner of the room, and that like, and when the heat turns on or when the air conditioning turns on, you hear, it makes a sound. So what you do is, first of all, don't sit right under that vent and sit away from the vent. And when you're talking into your mic should be pointed away from that vent, because then your microphone will reject most of the sound that's coming out of that vent. So it'll pick up the least amount of that vent when you point the mic directly away from that vent. And of course, I'm talking about microphones in the cardioid pattern, or hypercardioid or supercardioid, whatever, but not omni and not bidirectional, of course. So when it's cardioid, this applies. Point your microphone away from the noise source. Sometimes people, they record in a room where there's a window and there's a road right outside the window, and then when cars go by, you hear, little bits of car noise. So yeah, then get away from that window, and also point your microphone away from that window, and that will minimize how much of that noise you pick up. So you get the idea. You get it, the noise source. You want to point the mic away from a noise source. Next daily goodie is one of my favorite plugins for real. It's called the Black Box Analog Design HG2. So the HG2, it's just an outstanding saturation plugin. It's made by, it's sold through Plugin Alliance, which I'd say over the past year I've gotten a lot of their plugins because a handful of them are just, the quality is off the charts. This is one of them, actually. This plugin adds saturation. So the Black Box Analog Design HG2, it adds, saturation, which is slight harmonic distortion, even and odd. It actually, there's two controls on this plugin. One is for the even harmonics, the other's for the odd harmonics. So it's just, and if you don't know what saturation does, it's hard to explain, but it almost like it makes things sound more like they're back from the old analog days. It just makes things sound better. If you add a little bit of it, that's the idea, right? You just want to add a little. Because if you add a lot, then it's actual distortion. Like it'll just distort and sound just shredded. Of course, we don't want that. We just want to add a little bit of harmonic distortion. Anyway, I'm not going to, I guess I could, but I'm not going to teach saturation on this episode. So, but if, you can try any of these plugins. So just go find a good saturation plugin. Another plugin that has saturation that I like is the wonderful plugin, the Sheps Omni-Channel from Waves. That's a channel strip plugin, and that's the plugin that I recommend that people buy for their first plugin. Like if you don't know what your first plugin should be, I would suggest the Sheps Omni-Channel from Waves because it's a channel strip, so it has all the different types of processing, EQ, compression, filters. It has a gate. It has a limiter. Has 3 types of compression, and it has 2 de-essers, and that the 2 de-essers are I think the thing that makes it wonderful for podcasters because when you're processing when you're producing podcasts, you need a de-esser in your toolbox at all times. Like you always need to be able to break out a de-esser because you never know who's going to have too much sibilance. So anyway, the Sheps Omni-Channel has two separate de-essers, which is handy for when you want to de-ess 2 separate areas of the frequency spectrum. Like if you want to do some de-essing or maybe around, 6 to 8 kilohertz, and then maybe you want another band up, from 9 to 11 kilohertz or something. Anyway, I'm sort of going off on a tangent, aren't I? Well, that's what happens when I talk about audio stuff. All right, next daily goodie. Podcast participants trailing off at the end of sentences. Yeah, it's not just it's participants. It's hosts and guests. Some people have the habit of when they finish their sentence, they just trail off and the volume goes down and down and down. And it's almost by the end of their sentence, it's literally like they're whispering. They're not even really talking. It's just, and I'll demonstrate it now, but what I'm going to do is just so you can hear it, I'm going to start talking regular volume, and then as I reduce the level of my voice, I'm going to get closer to this microphone. So you'll be able to hear me, but just know that in a normal circumstance, the level would be a lot lower. So anyway, this is, people trail off at the end. They start real loud, and it's great, and then they just, they continue talking, and when they just end the sentence wherever they want to end it. Something. Anyway, that was definitely extreme, but that's my point. Some people have that habit. That's just the way they talk. Okay, no problem. Well, we can fix that issue in many different ways. And the reason we want to fix it is because when the person talks at such a low volume, again, if someone's driving in a car listening to that episode, they're not going to hear the end of that sentence. They're going to hear nothing. They're going to hear, yeah, and that's it. And it's like, okay. So what we want to do is we can use compression, we can use limiting, and we can also use some cool plugins like Vocal Rider, which is a great one, and that sort of automatically rides the level. You sort of set your target loudness, and then Vocal Rider, well, like if the sound gets too low in volume, Vocal Rider will start pushing it up more automatically. So it actually helps a lot with people who trail off at the end of sentences. So that's good to know. And I just touched the table. I don't know if that vibration came through the mic. Next daily goodie is the world thanks you for caring about quality audio. All right, I wrote this post because it's like we're definitely geeks, sort of, who love audio and love software and plugins and equipment and interfaces and everything, right? And gear and compression and EQ and all kinds of crazy processing. Like, we love all that stuff, and we really try to produce the best audio we can, and which is great, and we know why we're doing it. We're doing it because we want to provide a good listening experience to every listener, period. But sometimes you can go years without even remembering that. So I wrote this post just to say thank you. If you actually care about the quality of audio and actually produce the best audio you can and then put that out into the world, you're actually helping the world. You're helping people understand and have a listening experience on a much higher level. And it really does make a difference. I think it does. So anyway, thank you. If you care about audio and you're trying to produce good audio, man. I mean, I'm not going to say like it's spiritual work that we're doing or anything like that. I mean, I understand it's just producing audio, but my point is it really does make a difference. What do you think? I have a feeling like I'm missing more reasons why it's great to produce great audio. Okay. Oh, the next daily goodie was the Black Friday deal on Podcast Engineering School, which at the time of this episode, the price is still hasn't gone up yet. It's going to go up April 1st is when the price changes. So if you are thinking about enrolling in Podcast Engineering School, by the end of March, it would be the best. Next daily goodie, recordings riddled with random clicks. Yeah, did you ever listen to one of the recordings you've done or your client did and there's clicks all over it? The cause could be dropped samples due to the computer not being able to keep up. So if the computer, if someone's connected through Zencaster or Squadcast or something like that, if their computer processor is not fast enough and it can't keep up, that can cause these random clicks. So actually, Marcus DePaula, previous guest of this show and audio engineer, we had a great session here if you can find it. I forget what number it is, but he posted in the Podcasters Lounge Facebook group that he had a colleague record some interviews a while back, and his recordings were riddled with random clicks. And the cause was dropped samples due to his laptop not being able to keep up for 3 reasons. So here are the 3 reasons that Marcus says why his client's computer couldn't keep up, and then it was causing the clicks. Number 1, Adobe Audition, which was his DAW, was set to a different sample rate than his audio interface. So it was transcoding the sample rate in real time. Yeah, that's really good to know. You should be running your audio interface and your computer on the same sample rate. And for me, I run it at 48 kilohertz. I just run everything at 48. And 44.1 is totally acceptable. Okay, number 2, his buffer size was set way too low in Audition. He says you shouldn't need to worry about latency while recording, so there's no need to keep your buffer size too low. Yeah, so just keep your buffer size in the middle somewhere. Well, if you're recording it, I won't say it doesn't matter, but it matters less, as Marcus just explained. Okay, and the third reason was that he had a bunch of other apps open while recording, including Adobe Illustrator and Chrome with a ton of browser windows open. Okay, so this happens a lot to people, is they'll either when they're hosting or being a guest on a podcast, they'll connect to the session in Chrome, but they'll have 72 Chrome tabs open. And here's the thing, technically speaking, I don't know if that adds to the computer's processing load. Like, does it matter if you have 72 windows open? What if you only had 7? Is it really that much worse? I don't know. I literally don't know the answer to that. But anyway, the point is, the greater point is that you can just close all the tabs you don't need because you don't need 72. All right, and the other thing is, I like this post and I like what Marcus shared because it's really just kind of basic stuff that's helpful to know. So hopefully you like that. And this, I believe, is the last daily goodie. This is the last one. Repair Assistant in Izotope Rx. All right, so Izotope Rx, as you know, is probably the greatest software available to clean up bad audio. And there's a repair assistant inside Izotope. So Izotope Rx, if you're not familiar, it has a bunch of different modules that do all kinds of different processing, like a denoise, de-reverb, de-click, de-hum. It does loudness, it does EQ, it does fading, it does all kinds of things. Like, there's like 35 modules at least, or 40. Now, obviously, if you know how to produce audio and you're very experienced, you would be able to listen to a piece of audio and listen to it and evaluate it and then use certain tools to optimize the audio, right? That's what you would do if you were like a seasoned professional. But if you're just a podcaster or you're a podcast editor who's not like, is not an audio engineer and doesn't have, years and years of experience, what you can do is use this thing inside of RX. It's called Repair Assistant. And basically, the Repair Assistant, it's like an automatic process. It's almost like an AI or machine learning. It's probably machine learning. It'll scan the audio, it'll scan the file, the audio, and it'll actually recommend the modules and the settings that you should use to clean up this piece of audio. Okay, so you just run the Repair Assistant, and it comes up and it suggests a bunch of different modules and a bunch of different processes that you can use that it thinks you should use, sort of, to clean up the audio. So then what you do is, obviously it's a computer just sort of giving you settings that it thinks are good, but you, as a person, you actually have to listen to it and you have to, maybe adjust some settings, right? I would, in any software, I would never just blindly use some settings that they suggest for me. Like what I would do is use it as a starting point, if anything. So that's what you do here in RX with the Repair Assistant. You run the Repair Assistant, and whatever they suggest, you can use that as a starting point, and then go in there, and then just check the settings and maybe, render a couple things and hear back what it sounds like and everything. So anyway, in the end, you still have to use your ear. But I just thought, I don't know. I just never noticed that there was a Repair Assistant. And honestly, I don't ever use it because I just do everything myself. And, just from my gut or from my ears or whatever you want to call it. So, but I thought that was very interesting. So anyway, there's a bunch of daily goodies. Again, you can sign up to receive the daily goodies in your email if you want to. Do that on the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. And I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate all you guys commenting and sending me messages. Please let me know your thoughts. Comment on the posts of the episodes. And also, if you ever have a question about audio, just email me. Go on the website, use the contact page or whatever you want to do. But don't be bashful. Reach out. Okay, so what I will leave you with is telling you about a new a new group that I started on Locals. And this group is called Podcast Production. And it's cool. It's on locals.com, which is a really cool site for creators and all influencers and all that. But we're starting a really cool podcast production group over on Locals. And I'm going to be posting probably at least 3 short videos a week of just showing you things, really short, almost like video daily goodies. Actually, you could think of it that way. And I'm going to be posting other stuff too. And then the thing with Locals is that you can join it for free and you can see all the videos for free. You could do pretty much everything for free. What you cannot do for free is actually comment on the posts. And you actually cannot post yourself either. So if you do want to comment or post, you can actually become a supporter of that group. And it's $5 a month. Well, you could give more than that, but $5 minimum per month just to be able to hang out and, hang out with other awesome people. There's a lot of people in the group already. Bandrew Scott, Mike Wilkerson, Daryl Darnell, Eric Hundley, Brian Ensminger, Daniel Abendroth, Ross Brand, Roy Stegman, Jason Bryant, Leslie Martin, Paul you-know-who, Jason Sheasley, Carrie Caulfield, Eric, John Buchanan. I mean, these are like some heavy hitters in the field of podcast production. I'll tell you that. So anyway, it's called Podcast Production on Locals. Oh, the URL is very simple. podcastproduction.locals.com. podcastproduction.locals.com. And the link will also be in the show notes of this episode. So, all right. Well, I have no idea how long I went. Actually, if I move to Reaper, I can. Oh, it's almost 40 minutes. All right. Yeah. So this is like a little bit longer Daily Goody episode. But we also did all the tests during the Focusrite ad in the beginning, right? So anyway, I appreciate you. Thanks for listening. If you have any suggestions about anything you want me to do on the show or you think I should do, let me know, please. I really appreciate being in a community with you guys and so we can all help each other get better at audio production and earn great livings from that. So, all right, we'll see you.